This is a Superfly Jimmy Snooker. Thank you for having me on your radio dial.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's a little scary that little old me needs to be the voice of reason for the professional wrestling industry. But when you have a group of wrestling fans that consider themselves smart, and by considering themselves smart, also consider themselves insiders to the professional wrestling industry, you'll find a bunch of people, like in politics on the 24-hour news stations, that claim to know what they're talking about, and in reality completely make themselves sound like buffoons. So, here I am, James Walsh, on the evening of September the 6th, to be the voice of reason once again to the professional wrestling industry. That voice of reason will be in regards to the future of TNA Impact Wrestling. Now, I have been a fan of TNA Impact Wrestling since June 19th, 2002. Sink that in. That was the first ever Wednesday night pay-per-view. I paid my $10 a week for all 114 weeks. A lot of people say 113, 114 because week 12 was a best of show, and I bought that too. I was there. I watched it, I supported it, because I needed to sustain my interest in professional wrestling an alternative. Something other than the mundane stuff I was getting from the WWE. And now that NXT is around, you guys want to say, oh, well, it's okay if TNA goes down. Who owns NXT? How do you watch that again? What channel's it on? Oh, wait, it's on the WWE Network. Remember a little show called Shotgun Saturday Night? It's a show that the WWE put on in response to ECW's growing popularity. We had boobs and butts to combat Beulah and Francine that was in ECW that was being presented on WWE TV. And it was popular. Those first 6 episodes are pretty damn cool. And guess what happened? It got bastardized by the machine that operates your NXT. So what do you think is going to happen to your NXT? It's going to become bastardized. Back to my point. TNA is the longest reigning true alternative to the WWE with proven success. That's not a slight on Ring of Honor. In my opinion, in all honesty, right now, I think Ring of Honor is a higher echelon than TNA. But, in my opinion, Ring of Honor for many, many years was a smaller company than TNA because they didn't have legitimate TV. Now they're on the same station. That argument's out the window. ROH is running shows every weekend. TNA hasn't run anything since mid to late July. Long story short, here's my point. This wrestling industry would be in grave condition if TNA Impact Wrestling closed. Now, I know that Destination America very well may be about to pull the plug on that show, on Impact Wrestling. And based on the fact that they chose to go on Destination America in the first place, that tells me that their dance card wasn't exactly busy. They weren't full. There wasn't people falling over themselves to get a professional wrestling show on the air. And with Global Force Wrestling, with much more momentum, despite the fact that they don't even have a back catalog to say, hey, this is what we can bring to the table, that they are having to film these amped TV tapings to use as a bargaining chip to get on a network. Based on that fact, I honestly think that Global Force has a better chance of getting a TV deal than TNA because TNA's had such a brand damagement, that's a word, for the past, I'd say, 2 years. So, let me finish this point before I start the next point. TNA suffered damage. Yes. Do I think the show is great? There's positives. There's negatives. We all know what they are. I enjoy watching the knockouts. I really have enjoyed seeing Ethan Carter III come into his own. I mean, that guy would be a main eventer in any company that he works for, and that's not a joke. He is legit. With that said, the company would be best served for our industry to survive, because if you're not old enough to remember, and I'm saying that seriously, and a lot of people will hear that I say you're not old enough as me being facetious, I'm not. If you were not a fan in 2001 and saw ECW, followed thereafter by WCW, close down shortly after one another, and the dark, dreary, drizzling shits days that followed that, you have no business commenting on if TNA should close or not, because you have no concept of what there is when there is no alternative. And when there is no alternative, even my interest wanes. And I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, over 30 years. I'll be 34 next week. I love this business, but without an alternative, when there is only one choice, and NXT falls under that choice, the business as a whole suffers. So if you're sitting in your armchair quarterback chair saying that you hope that this industry, that this company, TNA, Impact Wrestling, Trifecta Entertainment, closes shop because Destination America makes a bad choice and cancels them, then you are not smart. You are not inside. You're not being edgy. You're not being intelligent. You're not even saying something provocative. You're saying something stupid. When did the wheels come off the wagon for TNA? Some people point to November of 2009 and say when Hulk Hogan was signed. I don't agree with that. Not in the slightest. Sure, we can point to the Monday Night Wars of March and April of 2010 and say, they were forced into something that they weren't ready for based on the Hulk Hogan name. Granted. Congratulations, you got one right. Here's the truth. 2011 and 2012 were very good years for TNA. By this time in 2012, they were a traveling company. Just a little bit from now, they were in my neck of the woods where I was, and I was at Bound for Glory, and there was 3,000 screaming crazy fans there for TNA Impact Wrestling. Would that happen now? Not a chance. Would that have happened in 2009? Not a chance. 2008, 2006, 2005, 4, and 7 too, since I skipped it. No, would never have happened. So my point is, Hulk Hogan didn't do this to TNA. Bad management and budget cuts did this to TNA. And I've said this from the get-go. This isn't provocative. I'm not saying this to get on TNA's good or bad side. They don't return my phone calls anyway. I'm just telling it like it is. TNA went off the rails when they started to listen to John Gubrick and make huge budget cuts in a, quote, youth movement. Right now, they're benefiting from Global Force Wrestling being an invasion on their show because I'm not even sure they have a big enough roster to fill 2 hours of TV. And that's just the truth. TNA was a traveling company. They had magic in a bottle. They had Hogan, they had Sting, they had the Dudleys, they had great storylines, characters that were young, that were getting built up. AJ was still there at the time. In 2012, it was a great show. 2013, when they started to cut the budget, they had that shit, dreary Bound for Glory show where Bully Ray and JJ Styles had that match and nothing happened, despite potential for something phenomenal. That was crap. Not on the guys, by the way. Their match was fine, but there should have been some kind of a storyline advancement there, and there wasn't. After that, it was over. I'm not surprised after the 2014 season that they got canceled from Spike TV. Would you keep that show on the air? I wouldn't. Bottom line, if you think that TNA should go out of business, you have no business talking about the wrestling business. Bottom line. And that is the voice of reason.